Hello and welcome to this first look exploring session looking at Eastward Ho! Exclamation mark by Ben Jonson, George Chapman and John Marston. It's our last John Marston play. It's a collaborative work and it comes from about 1605 and it is a response to a degree to a play with a very similar title, Westward Ho! And we will be looking at all three of the Ho plays in a relatively quick succession, at least as far as you're watching these videos. If you've just come from Westward Ho, you may notice my beard is somewhat longer. I'm not even sure I had a beard when we recorded that one, but as far as you're concerned, it was last week. How did I do it? Just time recording schedules. And yes, so without further ado, we have in the room reading Touchstone and Seagull is...
Lois Potter in London.
Reading Poldavy, Security, A Page and Mistress Touchstone is...
Aliki, Chapple in Athens.
Reading Golding's Petronel, Flash and Winifred is...
Lynn, I'm in the northwestern United States.
Reading Quicksilver is...
Gosh, we're such an international room today. Sarah Blake in Germany.
Reading Prologue, Mildred, Sindefy and Bramble is...
Alan, hiding behind a bramble bush in Suffolk.
And audio only, I believe, reading Gertrude and Spendall for at least the first hour is...
Julie Hoverson in Seattle, Pacific Northwest. Seattle, USA, sorry.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I will be reading stage directions and stepping in to read any additional parts that may fly around. So, without further ado, we will jump into the prologue. Prologue away, please.
Not out of envy, for there's no effect, where there's no cause, nor out of imitation. We have evermore been imitated, nor out of our contention to do better than that which is opposed to ours in title. For that was good, and better cannot be. And for the title, if it seem affected, we might as well have called it God give you even. Only that eastward, westward still exceeds, honours the sun's fair rising, not his setting. Nor is our title utterly enforced, but by the points we touch at you shall see. Bear with our willing pains, if dull or witty, we only dedicate it to the city.
Act 1, Scene 1. Enter Master Touchstone and Quicksilver at several doors. Quicksilver with his hat, pumps, short sword and dagger. Just double checking that these are authentic. They are. Good. And a racket trussed up under his cloak. At the middle door, enter Golding, discovering a goldsmith shop and walking short turns before it.
And whither with you now? What loose action are you bound for? Come, what comrades are you to meet withal? Where's the supper? Where's the rendezvous?
Indeed, and in very good sober truth, sir.
Indeed, and in very good sober truth, sir. Behind my back thou wilt swear faster than a French footboy, and talk more bodily than a common midwife. And now, indeed, and in very good sober truth, sir. But if a privy search should be made, with what furniture are you rigged now? Sirrah, I tell thee, I am thy master, William Touchstone, goldsmith, and thou my prentice, Francis Quicksilver, and I will see whither you are running. Work upon that now.
Why, sir, I hope a man may use his recreation with his master's profit.
Prentices' recreations are seldom with their master's profit. Work upon that now. You shall give up your cloak, though you be no alderman. Hey, day, ruffians haul, sword, pumps. Here's a racket indeed.
Touchstone uncloaks Quicksilver.
Work upon that now.
Thou shameless varlet, dost thou jest at thy lawful master, contrary to thy indentures?
White sploods, sir, my mother's a gentlewoman, and my father a justice of the peace and of quorum. And though I am a younger brother and apprentice, yet I hope I am my father's son, and by God's lid, 'tis for your worship and for your commodity that I keep company. I am entertained among gallants. True, they call me Cousin Frank, right? I lend them monies, good. They spend it. Oh, when they are spent, must not they strive to get more? Must not their land fly? And to whom? Shall not your worship have the refusal? I'm a good member of the city, if I were well considered. How would merchants thrive if gentlemen would not be unthrifts? How could gentlemen be unthrifts if their humours were not fed? How should their humours be fed but by white beat and cunning secondings? Well, the city might consider us. I'm going to an ordinary now, for the gallants fall to play. I carry light gold with me. The gallants call Cousin Frank. Some gold for silver. I change, gain by it. The gallants lose the gold and then call Cousin Frank, lend me some silver. Why?
Why? I cannot tell. 70 pound art thou out in the cash, but look to it, I will not be gallanted out of my moneys. And as for my rising by other men's fall, God shield me. Did I gain my wealth by ordinaries? No. By exchanging of gold? No. By keeping of gallants company? No. I hired me a little shop, fought low, took small gain, kept no debt book, garnished my shop for want of plate with good, wholesome, thrifty sentences, as, Touchstone, keep thy shop, and thy shop will keep thee. Light gains make heavy purses. 'Tis good to be merry and wise. And when I was wived, having something to stick to, I had the horn of suretyship ever before my eyes. You all know the device of the horn, where the young fellow slips in at the butt end and comes squeezed out at the buckle. And I grew up, and I praise Providence, I bear my brows now as high as the best of my neighbours. But thou, well, look to the accounts. Your father's bond lies for you. 70 pound is yet in the rear.
Why, Slid, sir, I have as good, as proper gallant's words for it as any are in London. Gentlemen of good phrase, perfect language, passingly behaved, gallants that wear socks and clean linen, and call me kind Cousin Frank, good Cousin Frank, for they know my father. And by God's lid, shall I not trust 'em? Not trust?
And enter a page as inquiring for Touchstone's shop.
What do you lack, sir? What is it you buy, sir?
Ay, marry, sir, there's a youth of another piece. There's thy fellow prentice, as good a gentleman born as thou art, and better meaned. But does he pump it or racket it? Well, if he thrive not, if he outlast not 100 such crackling bavins as thou art, God and men neglect industry.
It is his shop, and here my master walks.
With me, boy?
My master, Sir Petronel Flash, recommends his love to you and will instantly visit you.
To make up the match with my eldest daughter, my wife Stilling, whom she longs to call madam. He shall find me unwillingly ready, boy.
Exit page.
There's another affliction, too. As I have 2 prentices, the one of a boundless prodigality, the other of a most hopeful industry, so have I only 2 daughters, the eldest of a proud ambition and nice wantonness, the other of a modest humility and comely soberness. The one must be ladyfied, forsooth, and be attired just to the court cut and long tail. So far is she ill-natured to the place and means of my preferment and fortune, that she throws all the contempt and despite hatred itself can cast upon it. Well, a piece of land she has. 'Twas her grandmother's gift. Let her and her Sir Petronel flash that out. But as for my substance, she that scorns me as I am a citizen and tradesman shall never pamper her pride with my industry, shall never use me as men do foxes, keep themselves warm in the skin, and throw the body that bear it to the dunghill. I must go entertain this Sir Petronel. Golding, my utmost cares for thee, and only trust in thee, look to the shop. As for you, Master Quicksilver, think of husks, for thy course is running directly to the prodigal's hog's trough. Husks, sirrah, work upon that now.
Exit Touchstone.
Marry. No! Goodman Flatcap. What? Though I am apprentice, I can give alms, and my father's a justice of the peace by descent and blood.
Fie! How you swear!
What man, I am a gentleman. I may swear by my pedigree. God's my life. Sirrah Golding, wilt be ruled by a fool? Turn, good fellow. Turn swaggering gallant, and let the welkin roar, and Erebus also. Look not westward to the fall of Dan Phoebus, but to the east. Eastward ho! Where radiant beams of lusty sol appear, and bright Eos make the welkin clear. We are both gentlemen, and therefore should be no coxcombs. Let's be no longer fools to this flat-capped Touchstone. Eastward, bully! This satin belly and canvas-back Touchstone, Slife. His father was a maltman, and his mother sold gingerbread in Christchurch.
What would you have me to do?
Why, do nothing. Be like a gentleman. Be idle. The curse of man is labour. Wipe thy bum with touchstones, and make ducks and drakes with shillings. What? Eastward ho! Wilt thou cry, what is't ye lack? Stand with a bare pate and a dropping nose under a wooden penthouse, and art a gentleman? Wilt thou bear tankards, and mayst bear arms? Be rolled! Turn gallant! Eastward ho! Ta-lira-lira-ro! Who calls, Hieronymo? Speak! Here I am. God, so! How like a sheep thou look'st! Oh, my conscience, some cowherd begot thee, thou Golding of Golding Hall. Ha, boy?
Go! You are a prodigal coxcomb. I a cowherd's son because I am not a drunken whore-hunting rake-hell like thyself?
Rake-hell? Rake-hell!
Offers to draw, and Golding trips up his heels and holds him.
Pish! In soft terms, you are a cowardly, bragging boy. I'll have you whipped.
Whipped? Oh, that's good, i' faith. Untrust me.
No, wilt thou undo thyself? Alas, I behold thee with pity, not with anger, thou common shot-clog, gull of all companies. Methinks I see thee already walk in moorfields without a cloak, with half a hat, without a band, a doublet with 3 buttons, without a girdle, hose with 1 point and no garter, a cudgel under thine arm, borrowing and begging threepence.
Nay, Slife, take this and take all. As I am a gentleman born, I'll be drunk, grow valiant, and beat thee.
Exit Quicksilver.
Go, thou most madly vain, whom nothing can ever recover but that which reclaims atheists and makes great persons sometimes religious calamity. As for my place in life, thus I have read. Whate'er some vainer youth may term disgrace, the gain of honest pains is never base. From trades, from arts, from valor, honor springs. These 3 are fonts of gentry, yea, of kings.
And as Golding sort of steps out of the scene and lots of other people enter, we will pause. So this is a play to a degree in response to a play called Eastward Ho, but the prologue has made very clear, we're not theft or anything. It's fine. We're not doing anything. It's coincidence. Nothing to do with us because it's by different companies. This is by the Children of the Queen's Revels. The other was by a different boys' company, Children of Paul's. So it's a different company. Different playwrights. Previously, we had Webster and Decker. This time, we have the combination of Ben Jonson and John Marston, who have obviously patched up whatever differences they had during the War of the Theatres, if indeed there were any actual disagreements, or whether it was just a publicity stunt, and George Chapman as well. And so, whereas in Eastward Ho, Westward was very much a direction the plot was travelling in. Here, Eastward Ho has a slightly different spin to it. It's sort of this idea that it's something about. Well, it's potentially doing lots of things. I feel that I should probably just ask the question of what does it mean and look meaningly at Lois to answer for me.
Yeah, well, there's been a lot of argument about this. I mean, some critics think that Eastward Ho is, in fact, satirizing Westward Ho all the time. And other people think that Eastward Ho is a relatively tame play and Westward Ho is much more satiric. And it's really odd how it'll be interesting to see what everybody thinks when we get to the end of this, which one is more satiric or more subversive or all those other good words. But I suspect that one reason why it begins like that, because it really begins with a long phrase that isn't exactly a sentence. And I suspect that there's a kind of implied sentence, which is our play is called Eastward Ho, because then you kind of go on from that, not out of imitation, not out of envy, not out of, and the title would have been posted above the doors in the playhouse, the way the titles often were. So it would immediately, Jonson plays with this already in Poetaster, I think, where there the setting is Rome and it's over the different doors, and people again comment on that.
But yeah, they're riffing on it straight from the off, and it's constantly there, and it's sort of this is about how this is about this character's direction of travel as well. The Quicksilver wants to better. I love, where was that lovely line? My father's a justice of peace by descent. Therefore I'm a gentleman. I love that as a piece of logic.
Yeah.
And I also love the way that Touchstone just after the page exits just goes, I think I should just explain the plot.
And he's obviously talking to the audience, isn't he? I mean, it's the same with there's another bit early on, in fact, where when he says, you all know the device of the horn, that clearly must be the audience.
Yeah. So there's an awful lot of stuff which is asides. They're not currently marked in our text, but that's what's going on here. But it's still in the middle of a scene. I mean, the advantage of it being within a working shop, of course, the others have business to do while you're talking to the audience. Whereas normally, if there's an aside of any length, you've got to have this thing where there's people are standing around doing nothing while this person soliloquizes for a while. So we've got two who are quite different in character and outlook, what a coincidence! Touchstone has 2 daughters. I can't imagine this being important to the plot. Any other thoughts in the room? Who wants to leap in? Julie.
I had a wild thought of if Eastward Ho could also be a one-upmanship, because the west is where the sun goes down and the east is where the sun comes up.
Oh, no,
well, that's the point they make in the prologue: honor the sun's fair rising, not his setting. Yeah, because it is slightly confusing, because of course the city is the east part of London, and one wonders how far east are they going. It's partly because, as we'll discover later, they want to go quite a long way west, but they have to go east to do that. But there's also the fact that apparently the court was at Greenwich at this time, and so talk about going to the court would mean going east.
Sarah, you were waving.
I was, but I now have new information about the court being at Greenwich, so I'm thinking that's probably more likely. It just occurred to me that the way Quicksilver was using the term, it seemed to be like a rallying cry for anarchy, and I was wondering if it was to do with the boats, like if. I don't know, if you were going west from the city, you'd be going west for business and you'd be coming back home. Eastward Ho is back home. So if you're already in the city and you're going east, then that's maybe like that's the kind of subversive thing to do. That's the wrong direction to be going in. Like, I wondered if it was like this kind of call to subversion and anarchy. But in fact, if the court was in Greenwich, then actually maybe not. Maybe it's actually trying a metaphor for kind of bettering yourself. And
well, it's still subversion and anarchy, because it's getting out of the social class you ought to be in. I mean, Quicksilver wants to be a courtier, and he is a gentleman. Golding is a gentleman, by birth. But and one of the things that is sort of hinted at in the play is this whole quarrel about whether apprenticeship and trade, in fact, as someone puts it, I think trade extinguisheth gentry. In other words, I think anything that involves getting your hands dirty or even just dealing with money or working, this is Quicksilver's idea. You prove you're a gentleman by not working.
Okay, we're going to move on. We've established some big characters here. We're going to now establish a few more characters in the text. Some editions put this down as a separate scene 2. It depends on your point of view. Enter Gertrude, Mildred, Beatrice, and Poldavy, a tailor. Poldavy with a fair gown, Scotch farthingale, and French fall in his arms. Gertrude in a French head attire and citizen's gown. Mildred sewing, and Beatrice leading a monkey after her.
For the passion of patience, look if Sir Petronel approach. That sweet, that fine, that delicate, that... For love's sake, tell me if he come. Oh, Sister Mill, though my father be a low-capped tradesman, yet I must be a lady, and I praise God my mother must call me madam. Does he come? Off with this gown, for shame's sake, off with this gown! Let not my knight take me in the city cut in any hand. Tear backs on it. Does he come? Tear it off. Thus whilst she sleeps, I sorrow for her sake, etc.
Lord, sister, with what immodest impatience and disgraceful scorn do you put off your city attire? Sorry to think you imagine to right yourself in wronging that which hath made both you and us.
I tell you, I cannot endure it. I must be a lady. Do you wear your coif with a London licket, your stammel petticoat with 2 guards, the buffin gown with the tough taffety cape and the velvet lace? I must be a lady, and I will be a lady. I like some humours of the city dames well. To eat cherries only at an angel a pound, good. To dye rich scarlet, black, pretty. To line a grogram gown clean through with velvet, tolerable. Their pure linens, their smocks of 3 pounds a smock, are to be borne withal. But your mincing niceries, taffeta pipkins, durance petticoats, and silver bodkins, God's my life, as I shall be a lady, I cannot endure it. Is he come yet? Oh, Lord, what a long night 'tis! And ever she cried, shoot home! And yet I knew one longer. And ever she cried, shoot home! Fa la li re lola!
Well, sister, those that scorn their nest oft fly with a sick wing.
Bowbell.
Where titles presume to thrust before fit means to second them, wealth and respect often grow sullen and will not follow. Assured in this, I would for your sake I spake not truth. Where ambition of place goes before fitness of birth, contempt and disgrace follow. I heard a scholar once say that Ulysses, when he counterfeit himself mad, yoked cats and foxes and dogs together to draw his plough, whilst he followed and sowed salt. But sure I judge them truly mad, that yoke citizens and courtiers, tradesmen and soldiers, a goldsmith's daughter and a knight. Well, sister, pray God my father sow not salt too.
Alas, poor Mildred, when I am a lady, I'll pray for thee yet, if faith. Nay, and I'll vouchsafe to call thee Sister Mill still. For though thou art not like to be a lady, as I am, yet sure thou art a creature of God's making, and mayest peradventure to be saved as soon as I. Does he come? And ever and anon she doubled in her song. Now, ladies, my comfort, what profane apes here! Tailor, Poldavy, prithee, fit it! Is this a right Scot? Does it clip close and bear up round?
Fine and stiffly, in faith, 'twill keep your thighs so cool and make your waist so small. Here was a fault in your body, but I have supplied the defect with the effect of my steel instrument, which though it have but one eye, can see to rectify the imperfection of the proportion.
Most edifying tailor. I protest you tailors are most sanctified members, and make many crooked things go upright. How must I bear my hands? Light, light?
Ah, aye, now you are in the lady fashion. You must do all things light, tread light, light, aye, and fall so. That's the court amble.
She trips about the stage.
Has the court ne'er a trot?
No, but a false gallop, lady.
And if she will not go to bed?
And sings... we do not know what. Oh, I haven't got a Beatrice down, have I? The knights come, forsooth. Enter Sir Petronel, Flash, Master, Touchstone, and Mistress, Touchstone.
Is my knight come? Oh, the Lord, my band. Sister, do my checks look well? Give me a little box of the ear that I may seem to blush now. No! So there. Here he is. Oh, my dearest delight. Lord, Lord, and how does my knight?
Aye, with more modesty.
Modesty? Why, I am no citizen now. Modesty. Am I not to be married? You're best to keep me modest. Now I am to be a lady.
Boldness is good fashion and court-like.
Aye, in a country lady, I hope it is, as I shall be. And how chance he came no sooner, knight?
Faith, I was so entertained in the progress with one Count Epernon, a Welsh knight. We had a match at Balloon, too, with my Lord Watcham, for 4 crowns.
At Baboon? Jesu! You and I will play at Baboon in the country, knight.
Oh, sweet lady, 'tis a strong play with the arm.
With arm or leg or any other member, if it be a court sport. And when shallst be married, my knight?
I come now to consummate it, and your father may call a poor knight son-in-law.
Sir, are you come? What is not mine to keep? I must
This must
not
be my
be
line.
spoiled.
I'm pretty sure this is my line.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah.
yeah.
Because
Yeah.
yeah, for one thing, I'm pretty sure when he says you are come, he means you are not. He doesn't mean you are welcome. He means you are come. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And it says
sir.
that's a mother's gift. So
Yeah.
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 Yes, no, you're absolutely right. Yep, go for it.
Sir, ye are come. What is not mine to keep, I must not be sorry to forego. £100 land her grandmother left her, 'tis yours. Herself, as her mother's gift, is yours. But if you expect aught from me, know my hand and mine eyes open together. I do not give blindly. Work upon that now.
Sir, you mistrust not my means. I am a knight.
Sir, what I know not, you will give me leave to say, I am ignorant of.
Yes, that he is a knight. I know where he had money to pay the gentlemen ushers and heralds their fees. Aye, that he is a knight, and so might you have been too, if you had been aught else than an ass, as well as some of your neighbours. And I thought you would not have been knighted, as I am an honest woman. I would have dubbed you myself. I praise God I have wherewithal. But as for your daughter...
Aye, mother, I must be a lady tomorrow, and by your leave, mother, I speak it not without my duty, but only in the right of my husband. I must take place of you, mother.
That you shall, lady daughter, and have a coach as well as I, too.
Yes, mother, but by your leave, mother, I speak it not without my duty, but only in my husband's right. My coach horses must take the wall of your coach horses.
Come, the day grows low, 'tis supper time. Use my house, the wedding solemnity is at my wife's cost. Thank me for nothing but my unwilling blessing, for I cannot feign my hopes are faint. And, sir, respect my daughter. She has refused for you wealthy and honest matches, known good men, well-moneyed, better traded, best reputed.
body of truth, citizens, sweet knight, as soon as ever we are married, take me to thy mercy out of this miserable presently carry me out of the scent of Newcastle coal and the hearing of Bow Bell. I beseech thee, down with me, for God's sake.
Well, daughter, I have read that old wit sings, the greatest rivers flow from little springs. Though thou art full, scorn not thy means at first. He that's most drunk may soonest be athirst. Work upon that now.
All but Touchstone, Mildred, and Golding depart.
No, yon stand my hopes. Mildred, come hither, daughter. And how approve you your sister's fashion? How do you fancy her choice? What dost thou think?
I hope as a sister. Well.
Nay, but how dost thou like her behaviour and humour? Speak freely.
I'm loath to speak ill, yet I'm sorry of this. I cannot speak well.
Well, very good, as I would wish a modest answer. Golding, come hither. Hither, Golding. How dost thou like the knight, Sir Flash? Does he not look big? How likest thou the elephant? He says he has a castle in the country.
Great heaven, the elephant carry not his castle on his back.
For heaven, very well. But seriously, how dost repute him?
The best I can say of him is, I know him not.
Golding, I commend thee, I approve thee, and will make it appear my affection is strong to thee. My wife has her humour, and I will have mine. Dost thou see my daughter here? She's not fair, well-favoured, or so indifferent, which modest measure of beauty shall not make it thy only work to watch her, nor sufficient mischance to suspect her. Thou art towardly, she is modest. Thou art provident, she is careful. She's now mine. Give me thy hand. She's now thine. Work upon that now.
Sir, as your son, I honor you, and as your servant, obey you.
Sayest thou so? Come hither, Mildred. Do you see yon fellow? He is a gentleman, though my prentice, and has somewhat to take too. A youth of good hope, well-friended, well-parted. Are you mine? You are his. Work upon that now.
Sir, I'm all yours. Your body gave me life, your care and love, happiness of life. Let your virtue still directed. To your wisdom I wholly dispose myself.
Sayest thou so? Be you two better acquainted? Lip her, knave. So, shut up shop. In we must make holiday.
Exeunt Golding and Mildred.
This match shall on. For I intend to prove which thrives the best, the mean or lofty love, whether fit wedlock vowed twixt like and like, or prouder hopes which daringly o'erstrike their place and means. 'Tis honest time's expense when seeming lightness bears a moral sense. Work upon that now.
And with that injunction to go away and do your homework, think about what I said. He does that, work upon that now quite a lot, and I'm liking that as a turn of phrase. What a lot of stuff is going on here. What a lot of delightful stuff going on here. We have lots of nice class business going on here. The upwardly mobile are all over the place in interesting fashion. I love the way that Bow Bell is basically an insult, something to do with Cockneys.
It's got to do being within the range of the Church of Bow's Bell, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the convention.
Yeah.
You're only a true Cockney if you're born within the hearing. And
Yeah.
whereas this, for someone who wants to be upwardly mobile, to be associated with that, it's delightful stuff. Thoughts in the room? I'm loving this family unit. I think they function really interestingly. Aliki.
I'm really interested in Gertrude's habit of bursting into song every now and then. She seems to always be quoting song lyrics. I don't know if we know the melodies of those or what happens next, because there's one that ends in an etc. and you sort of feel like she could extemporize several verses until
the etc. We do actually, I think, have the extant song. I don't think we do for the others. I could be wrong on some of them, but at least one of them we do know what that one is. But some of the others, I've got footnotes here of unknown song. But then again, they might have been found since then. People have done a lot of work on ballads since the edition I was looking at, and so there's a lot of that stuff potentially to play for. Other thoughts?
Ooh, I get to sing.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, she does a whole song later on. I know for this edition, we've got Linda Austern, who's an expert on music of this period and music for the theaters, doing, I think, an appendix on the music. So I'm hoping that some new stuff will come up. I know we've been corresponding about some of this, but I don't have any tunes, I think, for any of this. I hope they're going to be printed separately. But yeah, that the fact that she sings and also dances around the stage and prances, I mean, she's very visible as a character.
Yes, with a monkey, of which is a detail that is both delightful and horrific at the same time, because it's probably so there's all sorts of things, but there's the Upward Mobile seemed to do an awful lot of quoting as well, because Quicksilver was sort of quoting, doing a bit of the Spanish tragedy, because we our ears always prick up when we hear Geronimo, so
he quotes a lot
it seems
of
to be a
stuff.
thing. Sorry, Lois.
Yeah, he quotes a lot of stuff. I mean, in a sense, they are both imitating, and that's partly what the monkey is there for, I guess, as a kind of comment on aping, other people's fashions. There's also, I mean, there is that bit where Gertrude says what a profane ape this is, and I think the monkey must be a trained monkey that does something pretty weird at that moment. In fact, I think that the whole point of Beatrice, who has one line and seems to be, it doesn't appear anywhere else in the play. I'm pretty sure that's the monkey's trainer, who's just dressed as a woman at this point, but who is presumably getting it to do something or other. I mean, the most obvious thing is there is a reference in, I think it's Bartholomew Fair, to a monkey that is told, jump over the stick for the king, and it does. Jump over it for the Prince of Wales, and it does. And then eventually somebody says, jump over it for the King of Spain, and then the monkey sits down. So it's probably something like that. It's taught to do something rather rude.
Whereas I think for a modern performance, I think what we need to do is have one of those, sort of very, very niche small dogs that fits in a purse. That's sort of my sort of feeling on that one. Is that kind of status symbol, or what someone thinks is a status symbol, but they get it slightly wrong. Lynn.
Yeah, I do hope that Mildred and Quicksilver actually, as it turns out, really like each other. I mean, they do seem temperamentally well matched, because Touchstone's just like, you guys are getting married, right? They have so little to say about, a world without end bargain. It's, I don't know. I found that a little off-putting, actually.
Yeah, it's odd. Yeah, that Golding and Mildred. I mean, because they seem to be temperamentally suited. That doesn't mean anything. It's lip her, go and kiss. It's all been arranged. Now off you go. And it's like you could see them sort of just going, okay.
You could see them going, oh, we've been just waiting for months for this. A lot depends on how those characters violently play that moment.
Yeah, but you certainly can do something to indicate. I mean, they must have known each other for quite a while. I mean, Golding has been apprenticed for years in the same house. So,
yes,
and there's an element of, mom got her daughter married to what she wants. I'm getting mine to what I want now before she can mess with this one.
Yeah, because it's really interesting, the relationship between Mistress Touchstone and Gertrude and the family dynamic there is really interesting. I'll go to Aliki, then Sarah, then we will move on.
Yeah, I'm not sure I buy Touchstone's premise that the only thing that really matters in a good marriage is whether they're of the same class. And I'm not sure that he means anything by they have the same temperament, other than they both do what I tell them to.
Yes, I suppose, from his point of view, that's all perfectly reasonable. Sarah?
They do both seem to be quite circumspect characters, though. And you have the impression in that exchange between Golding and Quicksilver that Golding, even if he isn't any older in terms of years, he's definitely more mature, as a being. And then, Mildred has a lot more sort of reticence about her than Gertrude. Not that that's saying much, but I mean, I don't know. I haven't read this. I haven't read ahead, so I don't know how the plot's going to go. But if it turns out that that is actually meant to be like, a good marriage in the story, it would be really easy to get around because they are both quite circumspect characters. You could have an entire little scene, where they maybe cross the stage, or one crosses the stage in front of the other, and there's like a little furtive look and maybe a bit of a blush, and then also when Touchstone says, "You're all right, okay, you two get together now." I mean, depending on even though they don't really say that much, depending on how they say it, and then the level of, kind of body language that goes along with it, then that could actually turn that into like a really, really sweet moment. If this is meant to be like a good marriage from the audience's perspective, maybe it's all going to go to hell in a handbasket. I don't know, but there's ways and means.
I mean, the thing is, there's a sort of inference that perhaps Golding retires, but also he could. There's no indication that he exits, that he comes back on again. So he's on stage throughout all of that scene, and Mildred stops talking to Gertrude after a little bit and is left. So there's lots of physical opportunity for them to be doing something upstage, even if it's furtive. There's lots of room, and this is a boys' company play, so we know little detail. Detailed action is something that they do in a way that the public playhouses don't necessarily do so much.
I had one.
Yeah,
sorry,
Julie.
One textual question, but I'll wait till you finish there.
If it's a detailed thing about individual or anything to do with errors, pop it in the chat. But if it's just a general question, then go ahead.
Well, no, it actually goes to character as well. The balloon baboon thing, is that a malapropism on Gertrude's part, which shows that she's a social climber who doesn't get it, or is that just a textual issue?
I think she might have just misheard.
Almost everything Gertrude says is potentially a double entendre of a sexual kind.
Well, yeah, I knew that was there, but he said they were playing with balloons, and she took it as baboons.
Yeah, it's not balloons actually. It's I think ballon is a sort of I think it was played with a paddle, in fact, and it.
Okay,
so that was a real game. Yeah.
So it's like a football, but it's not football.
Yeah.
All right.
It's an interesting question of how we get that across for modern audiences.
Yeah, I think we cut that bit.
Yes. I don't know. Everyone loves a baboon gag. Anyway, we must move forward to Act 2. Boys' Company, so there may have been an actual interval here. Act 2, Scene 1. Enter Touchstone, Quicksilver, Golding and Mildred, sitting on either side of the stall.
Quicksilver, Master Francis Quicksilver, Master Quicksilver.
And enter Quicksilver.
Here, sir.
So, sir, nothing but flat Master Quicksilver, without any familiar addition, will fetch you. Will you trust my point, sir?
Aye, forsooth.
How now, sir, the drunken hiccup so soon this morning?
'Tis but the coldness of my stomach, forsooth.
What, have you the cause natural for it? You're a very learned drunkard. I believe I shall miss some of my silver spoons with your learning. The nuptial night will not moisten your throat sufficiently, but the morning likewise must rain her dews into your gluttonous weasand.
And please you, sir, we did but drink to the coming off of the nightly bridegroom.
To the coming off of him.
Aye, forsooth. We drunk to his coming on when we went to bed, and now we are up, we must drink to his coming off. For that's the chief honour of a soldier, sir, and therefore we must drink so much the more to it, forsooth.
A very capital reason, so that you go to bed late and rise early to commit drunkenness. You fulfill the scripture very sufficient wickedly, forsooth.
The knight's men, forsooth, be still o' their knees at it, and because 'tis to your credit, sir, I would be loath to flinch.
Ay, pray, sir, e'en to 'em again, then. You're one of the separated crew, one of my wife's faction, and my young ladies, with whom and with their great match I will have nothing to do.
So, sir, now I will go keep my credit with 'em, an it please you, sir.
In any case, sir, lay 1 cup of sack more o' your cold stomach, I beseech you.
Yes, forsooth.
Exit Quicksilver.
This is for my credit. Servants ever maintain drunkenness in their master's house for their master's credit, a good idle serving man's reason. I thank time the night is past. I ne'er waked to such cost. I think we have stowed more sorts of flesh in our bellies than ever Noah's ark received. And for wine, why, my house turns giddy with it, and more noise in it than at a conduit. Ay me, even beasts condemn our gluttony. Well, 'tis our city's fault, which, because we commit seldom, we commit the more sinfully. We lose no time in our sensuality, but we make amends for it. Oh, that we would do so in virtue and in religious negligences. But see, here are all the sober parcels my house can show. I'll eavesdrop, hear what thoughts they utter this morning.
And the scene shifts from a focus on Touchstone to Golding and Mildred.
But is it possible that you, seeing your sister preferred to the bed of a knight, should contain your affections in the arms of a prentice?
I'd rather make up the garment of my affections in some of the same piece than, like a fool, wear gowns of 2 colours or mix sackcloth with satin.
And do the costly garments, the title and fame of a lady, the fashion and observation and reverence proper to such preferment, no more inflame you than such convenience as my poor means and industry can offer to your virtues?
I've observed that the bridle given to those violent flatteries of fortune is seldom recovered. They bear one headlong in desire from one novelty to another, and where those ranging appetites reign, there is ever more passion than reason. No stay, and so no happiness. These hasty advancements are not natural. Nature hath given us legs to go to our objects, not wings to fly to them.
How dear an object you are to my desires I cannot express, whose fruition, would my master's absolute consent and yours vouchsafe me, I should be absolutely happy. And although it were a grace so far beyond my merit that I should blush with unworthiness to receive it, yet thus far both my love and my means shall assure your requital. You shall want nothing fit for your birth and education. What increase of wealth and advancement the honest and orderly industry and skill of our trade will afford in any, I doubt not, will be aspired by me. I will ever make your contentment the end of my endeavors. I will love you above all, and only your grief shall be my misery, and your delight my felicity.
Work upon that now. By my hopes he woos honestly and orderly. He shall be anchor of my hopes. Oh, look, see the ill-yoked monster, his fellow.
Enter Quicksilver, unlaced, a towel about his neck, in his flat cap, drunk.
Eastward Ho! Holla, ye pampered jades of Asia!
Drunk now, downright of my fidelity.
Polo, shoza, quoth the Calavir.
Fie, fellow Quicksilver, what a pickle are you in?
Pickle? Pickle in thy throat, zoons, pickle! Whoa! Good morrow, Knight Petronel. Morrow, Lady Goldsmith. Come off, knight, with a counterbuff for the honour of knighthood.
How now, sir? Do you know where you are?
Where I am? Why, splat, you jolthead! Where I am.
Go to, for shame. Go to bed and sleep out this immodesty. Thou shamest both my master and his house.
Shame? What shame? I thought thou wouldst show thy bringing up, and thou were a gentleman, as I am. Thou wouldst think it no shame to be drunk. Lend me some money. Save my credit. I must dine with the servingmen and their wives. And their wives, sirrah.
Even who you will, I'll not lend thee threepence.
Svot, lend me some money. Hast thou not heard here?
Why, how now, sirrah? What vain's this, huh?
Who cries on murder? Lady, was it you? How does our master? Pray thee cry, Eastward Ho!
Sirrah, you're past your hiccup now. I see you're drunk.
'Tis for your credit, master.
And here you keep a whore in town.
'Tis for your credit, master.
And what you are out in cash, I know.
So do I. My father's a gentleman. Work upon that now. Eastward Ho!
Sir, Eastward Ho will make you go Westward Ho. I will no longer dishonest my house, nor endanger my stock with your license. There, sir, there's your indenture. All your apparel, that I must know, is on your back. And from this time my door is shut to you. From me be free, but for other freedom and the moneys you have wasted, Eastward Ho shall not save you.
Am I free of my fetters? Rent! Fly with a duck in thy mouth! And now I tell thee, Touchstone,
Good, sir.
when this eternal substance of my soul
Oh, well said. Change your gold ends for your play ends.
did live imprisoned in my wanton flesh,
What then, sir?
I was a courtier in the Spanish court, and Don Andrea was my name.
Good, Master Don Andrea. Will you march?
Sweet Touchstone, will you lend me 2 shillings?
Not a penny.
Not a penny? I have friends, and I have acquaintance. I will piss at thy shop post and throw rotten eggs at thy sign. Work upon that now.
Exit, staggering.
Now, sirrah, you, hear you? You shall serve me no more neither. Not an hour longer.
What mean you, sir?
I mean to give thee thy freedom, and with thy freedom my daughter, and with my daughter a father's love, and with all these such a portion as shall make knight Petronel himself envy thee. You're both agreed, are you not?
With
With
all
all
submission,
submission,
both of
both of
thanks and
thanks and
duty.
duty.
Well, then, the great power of heaven bless and confirm you. And, Golding, that my love to thee may not show less than my wife's love to my eldest daughter, thy marriage feast shall equal the knight's and hers.
Let me beseech you, no, sir. The superfluity and cold meat left after their nuptials will be bounty to furnish ours. The grossest prodigality is superfluous cost of the belly. Nor would I wish any invitement of states or friends. Only your reverent presence and witness shall sufficiently grace and confirm us.
Son to my own bosom, take her and my blessing. The nice fondling, my lady, Sir Reverence, that I must not now presume to call daughter, is so ravished with desire to hansel her new coach and see her knight's eastward castle, that the next morning will sweat with her busy setting forth. Away will she and her mother, and while their preparation is making, ourselves, with some 2 or 3 other friends, will consummate the humble match we have in God's name concluded. 'Tis to my wish, for I have often read, fit birth, fit age, keeps long a quiet bed. 'Tis to my wish, for tradesmen, well 'tis known, get with more ease than gentry keeps his own.
And they exit. I forget how many ways there are to leave your lover, but there's obviously 2 ways to leave your apprenticeship. You can get unbelievably drunk and start quoting at length the Spanish tragedy, or there is get married to the boss's daughter. Yes, so I think we have the answer to the question that Golding and Mildred do seem to be well matched, and that they have a sort of awkward wooing scene, which Touchstone approves of. I do love the way that Quicksilver exits there, having lost any sense of attempting the moral high ground, I'm gonna piss on your shop posts. Work upon that now, and uses the catchphrases against him. It's very nicely done, it has to be said. I entirely believed Quicksilver. I entirely really believe all these characters. I mean, even though they are obviously comedically exaggerated, they really do function very nicely. Thoughts on the room? Sarah.
Well, it's just a fun thing, but for the audience at home who might not have a copy of the script, I just feel it would be quite good fun to tell them that the hiccups in the text were noted as a little in parentheses, which when I first saw it, I was like, what is that? And then Touchstone had the line about, oh, you got the hiccups. And I'm like, oh, okay, I see what it is. I read that just in time, but I just thought it was quite fun to have this in brackets, the fact that the playwright had bothered, or whichever one it was, had bothered to actually, put them in at certain key points, presumably.
Yeah. I was impressed that you figured that out on the fly.
Yeah. Well, I was just like looking at my next lines and I'm like, what? Panic. And then I read the line. Thank God it was in Touchstone's script. Otherwise I would have been, lost.
Yeah, I mean, we've definitely had that from several of the potential playwrights writing bits of this. I don't know how accurately people can guess where the playwrights are involved, but I know Marston and Jonson have both played around with that kind of sound or that kind of notation in scripts. So it seems to pop up in boys' company plays. That kind of detail is really nice. I really like that. Lynn, then Aliki.
Yeah, I can't remember any of the details, but there was another play where a character was evidently smoking tobacco or something. I remember Rachel reading it, and I can't remember how it was notated, but I couldn't quite figure out what were going on, and maybe he was taking a drag on his pipe.
I think that's just a dash in the script, but there's a mention in the stage directions that's what they're doing. I think that's turned up again. That's in Jonson and Marston. I think there's because I think it's in Jack Drum's Entertainment, and I think it's in one of Jonson's as well, and I forget which. Probably one of the Humours plays.
Yeah, I think it might be Every Man Out.
Yeah. So it's a detail that does turn up, and it gives an actor business. And so long as they don't overplay it, I mean, there aren't too many hiccups. There's nothing worse than having too many of those little jumps or whatever, because that you might set them off. Aliki.
I really loved how in the previous scene Touchstone said to him, go off and have another drink now, and Quicksilver, completely impervious to sarcasm, just like, yes, I think I will, maybe several. Comes back even more drunk. Brilliant.
Lois.
Yeah, I think it is actually possible to deduce that Touchstone has decided to fire Quicksilver and actually wants to have a good case against him. Because for one thing, he's bringing the indenture with him, which he wouldn't normally be carrying around. He's got it right there, ready.
Constructive dismissal.
Yes. So I think he probably is, go ahead, get really drunk, then I can fire you.
Yeah. But to be fair, they're obviously not a match made in heaven. So yeah, Quicksilver constantly quoting plays. So he's obviously a regular playgoer. I mean, there's a lot of plays in there. There's a bit of Marlowe as well, and there might be some others possibly popping in. And yeah, the line about Westward Ho, Sir Eastward Ho will make you go Westward Ho. Is that sort of referencing?
Tyburn.
Tyburn, yeah. I was going to say it's that's going to get you in stuff. Westward Ho shall not serve you. It's nicely done.
Very nicely done. We've pretty much, people think that Marston wrote this bit, and we've pretty much got to the end of the bit by Marston, although it's quite likely that Jonson may have gone through the whole thing and revised and tidied it up.
It's got lots of little touches of Marston, but it also has the level of detail that sometimes Jonson imposes. So I can understand. It feels properly collaborative so far. But we haven't really had potentially a big. I mean, it's like last time when we were reading Westward Ho, we could tell there were different authors, but they still function together really nicely, and I think that's what's potentially nice here. Though I think we did have a few minor plot issues. The very tiny ones.
Yeah.
But that was quibbling. Anyway, let us read on, unless there are any other thoughts. Anyone want to leap in? No. Okay. Act 2, Scene 2. All of these individual scenes are inferred, so there are variations depending on editions. We have the appearance of Security, Solus.
My privy guest, lusty Quicksilver, has drunk too deep of the bride bowl, but with a little sleep he is much recovered, and I think is making himself ready to be drunk in a gallanter likeness. My house is at Eastward the cave, where the young outlaw hoards the stolen veils of his occupation. And here, when he will revel it in his prodigal similitude, he retires to his trunks and, I may say softly, his punks. He dares trust me with the keeping of both, for I am security itself. My name is Security, the famous usurer.
And depending on how you want to break it up, it could be a continuing, ongoing scene. Enter Quicksilver in his prentice's coat and cap, his gallant breeches and stockings, gartering himself, Security following.
Come, old Security, thou father of destruction. The indented sheepskin is burned wherein I was wrapped, and I am now loose to get more children of perdition into thy usurious bonds. Thou feedst my lechery, and I thy covetousness. Thou art pander to me for my wench, and I to thee for thy cousin-ages. Kami car thee runs through court and country.
Well said, my subtle Quicksilver. These cars open the doors to all the world's felicity. The dullest forehead sees it. Let not Master Courtier thinks he carries all the knavery on his shoulders. I have known poor Hob in the country that has worn hobnail on shoes have as much villainy in his head as he that wears gold buttons in his cap.
Why, man, 'tis the London highway to thrift. If virtue be used, 'tis but as escape to the net of villainy. They that use it simply thrive simply, I warrant. Weight and fashion makes goldsmiths cuckolds.
And enter Sindefy with Quicksilver's doublet, cloak, rapier, and dagger.
Put off the other half of your apprenticeship.
Well said, sweet Sin. Bring forth my bravery. Now let my trunks shoot forth their silks concealed. I am free. And now will justify my trunks and punks. Avaunt, dull flat cap, then. Via the curtain, that shadowed Borgia, there lie, thou husk of my envassaled state. I, Samson, now have burst the Philistine's bands, and in thy lap, my lovely Delilah, I'll lie and snore out my enfranchised state. When Samson was a tall young man, his power and strength increased then. He sold no more, nor cup nor can, but did them all despise. Old Touchstone, now write to thy friends, for one to sell thy base gold ends. Quicksilver now no more attends thee, Touchstone. But, Dad, hast thou seen my running gelding dress today?
That I have, Frank. The ostler at the Cock dressed him for breakfast.
What? Did he eat him?
No, but he eat his breakfast for dressing him, and so dressed him for breakfast.
Oh, witty age. Where age is young and wit, and all youth's words of grey beards full of it.
But alas, Frank, how will all this be maintained now your place maintained it before?
Why, and I maintained my place. I'll to the court. Another manner of place for maintenance, I hope, than the silly city. I heard my father say. I heard my mother sing an old song, and true. Thou art a she-fool, and know'st not what belongs to our male wisdom. I shall be a merchant, forsooth. trust my estate in a wooden trough, as he does. What are these ships but tennis balls for the winds to play withal, tossed from one wave to another, now under line, now over the house, sometimes brick-walled against a rock so that the guts fly out again, sometimes struck under the wide hazard, and farewell, master merchant.
Well, Frank, well, the seas you say are uncertain, but he that sails in your court seas shall find them 10 times fuller of hazard, wherein to see what is to be seen is torment more than a free spirit can endure. But when you come to suffer, how many injuries swallow you? What care and devotion must you use to humour an imperious lord, proportion your looks to his looks, smiles to his smiles, fit your sails to the winds of his breath?
Psh, he's no journeyman in his craft that cannot do that.
But he's worse than the apprentice that does it, not only humouring the lord, but every trencher bearer, every groom, that by indulgence and intelligence creeps into his favour, and by panderism into his chamber. He rules the roost, and where my honourable lord says it shall be thus, my worshipful rascal, the groom of his close stool says it shall not be thus, claps the door after him, and who dares enter? Apprentice, quoth you, 'tis but to learn to live. Does that disgrace a man? He that rises hardly stands firmly, but he that rises with ease, alas, falls as easily.
A pox on you! Who taught you this morality?
'Tis long of this witty age, Master Francis. But indeed, Master Sindefy, all trades complain of inconvenience, and therefore it is best to have none. The merchant, he complains and says, traffic is subject to much uncertainty and loss. Let them keep their goods on dry land with a vengeance, and not expose other men's substances to the mercy of the winds under protection of a wooden wall, as Master Francis says, and all for greedy desire to enrich themselves with unconscionable gain, who for one or so were I, and such other honest men as live by lending money, are content with moderate profit, 30 or 40 in the 100, so we may have it with quietness and out of peril of wind and weather, rather than run those dangerous courses of trading as they do.
Exit or moves aside Sindefy.
Ay, Dad, thou mayst be well called security, for thou takest the safest course.
Faith, the quieter and the more contented and out of doubt, the more godly. For merchants in their courses are never pleased, but ever repining against heaven. One prays for a westerly wind to carry his ship forth, another for an easterly to bring his ship home, and at every shaking of a leaf he falls into an agony to think what danger his ship is in on such a coast, and so forth. The farmer, he is ever at odds with the weather. Sometimes the clouds have been too barren, sometimes the heavens forget themselves. Their harvest answer not their hopes, sometimes the season falls out too fruitful, corn will bear no price, and so forth. The artificer, he's all for a stirring world. If his trade be too full and fall short of his expectation, then falls he out of joint. Where we that trade nothing but money are free from all this, we are pleased with all weathers. Let it rain or hold up, be calm or windy. Let the season be whatsoever. Let the trade go how it will. We take all in good part, in what please the heavens to send us. So the sun stand not still, and the moon keep her usual returns, and make up days, months, and years.
And you have good security?
I marry, Frank, that's the special point.
And yet, forsooth, we must have trades to live withal. For we cannot stand without legs, nor fly without wings, and a number of such scurvy phrases. No, I say still, he that has wit, let him live by his wit. He that has none, let him be a tradesman.
Witty Master Francis, 'tis pity any trade should dull that quick brain of yours. Do but bring knight Petronel into my parchment toils once, you shall never need to toil in any trade to my credit. You know his wife's land?
Even to a foot, sir. I have been often there. A pretty fine seat, good land, all entire within itself.
Well wooded?
£200 worth of wood ready to fell, and a fine sweet house that stands just in the middle on it, like a prick in the midst of a circle. Would I were your farmer for £100 a year?
Excellent, Master Francis. How I do long to do thee good. How I do hunger and thirst to have the honour to enrich thee. Ay, even to die that thou mightst inherit my living. Even hunger and thirst. For on my religion, Master Francis, and so tell Knight Petronel, I do it to do him a pleasure.
Marry, Dad, his horses are now coming up to bear down his lady. Wilt thou lend him thy stable to set him in?
Faith, Master Francis, I would be loath to lend my stable out of doors. In a greater matter, I will pleasure him, but not in this.
A pox of your hunger and thirst. Well, Dad, let him have money. All he could get anyway is bestowed on a ship now bound for Virginia, the frame of which voyage is so closely conveyed that his new lady nor any of her friends know it. Notwithstanding, as soon as his lady's hand is gotten to the sale of her inheritance, and you have furnished him with money, he will instantly hoist sail and away.
Now a frank gale of wind go with him, Master Frank. We have too few such knights adventurers who would not sell away competent certainties to purchase, with any danger, excellent uncertainties. Your true knight venturer ever does. Let his wife sail today, he shall have his money today.
Tomorrow she shall, Dad, before she goes into the country. To work her to which action with the more engines, I purpose presently to prefer my sweet Sin here to the place of her gentlewoman, whom you, for the more credit, shall present as your friend's daughter, a gentlewoman of the country. You come up with a will for a while to learn fashions, forsooth, and be towards some lady, and she shall buzz pretty devices into her lady's ear, feeding her humours so serviceably as the manner of such as she is, you know.
True, good Master Francis.
And re-enter Sindefy to the action.
That she shall keep her port open to anything she commends to her.
Oh, my religion. A most fashionable project. As good she spoil the lady as the lady spoil her, for 'tis 3 to 1 of one side. Sweet Mistress Sin, how are you bound to Master Francis? I do not doubt to see you shortly wed one of the head men of our city.
But sweet Frank, when shall my father's security present me?
With all festination. I have broken the ice to it already, and will presently to the knight's house, whither, my good old dad, let me pray thee with all formality to man her.
Command me, Master Francis, I do hunger and thirst to do thee service. Come, sweet Mistress Sin, take leave of my Winifred, and we will instantly meet Frank, Master Francis, at your lady's.
Enter Winifred above.
Where is my Q there, Q?
Aye, Winnie.
Wilt thou come in, sweet Q?
Aye, Winnie, presently.
Exit all. Yes, hang on. Exuent security and Sindefy, yes.
Aye, Winnie, quoth he. That's all he can do, poor man. He may well cut off her name at Winnie. Oh, 'tis an egregious pander. What will not a usurious knave be, so he may be rich? Oh, 'tis a notable Jew's trump. I hope to live to see dog's meat made of the old usurer's flesh, dice of his bones, and indentures of his skin. And yet his skin is too thick to make parchment. 'Twould make good boots for a peterman to catch salmon in. Your only smooth skin to make a fine vellum is your Puritan skin. Maybe the smoothest and slickest knaves in a country.
And we will pause there, mid-scene, depending on your point of view. thoughts on this? There's a complicated transaction going on, or series of transactions going on here, planning wicked things. But Quicksilver is free from his indentured bonds, and yes, therefore he can get out his secret clothing stash to make himself look fab. Yes, has a complicated relationship with security, who is says a lot of words, as do many people in this play. Thoughts, Sarah?
That last speech, though, of Quicksilver's, that was just quite appalling, and I don't know, because the thing is, I'm guessing the audience wouldn't have thought it was appalling at the time. So I'm not sure, like, if it's been put in on purpose to show a nastier side of his character, or whether it is just meant to be like, haha, like a continuing joke, in which case you could just cut it really easily. If it's meant to show a kind of character development, I don't know how you do it, but it's really disturbing.
I'll go to Lois.
Yeah, I agree. It is rather upsetting, and I think it might even have been so at the time. It's very odd, but this is one of the few times when a play is actually referenced in a piece of religious writing. It's somebody discovered this at some point. It wasn't me, but it's something from 1612, I think, and it's a dialogue in which a character who does quite a bit of talking, a woman who is also a Puritan, speaks about how we're all loyal to our country, even though some have talked about making vellum out of our skins. And there's even a reference in the margin to Eastward Ho. And then someone says, "Did you see that play?" And the woman says, "No, but I've heard it talked of." So it's interesting because I don't see it mentioned anywhere else. And, as you'll be hearing at some point, the plague did get people into trouble, but not for that, as far as I can make out. But it might have been, there were a lot of Puritans around, after all, and they can't have really liked this idea, quite apart from what might happen to security personally, just the whole notion of flaying anybody's skin off and treating them like that. So I think we might have a tiny bit of evidence anyway that this did bother some people.
Because when you're doing something like this, which is the question of how satirical it is, what are its targets, what is it doing? It's a question of how far do they go at times, and what it is that disturbs people then, disturbs people now. I think it's appropriate for Quicksilver in the sense that Quicksilver isn't the greatest. He's not a moral exemplar we're all supposed to be following.
No, but he's kind of it. There's a level of nastiness in that speech, which he's clearly like a complete ne'er-do-well, but there's a level of nastiness in there that like wasn't in his previous speech. He does definitely drop down a level there. I feel. I
don't think he's intending to actually flay him though.
No, but it's just really, I don't know.
He really seems to be relishing that imagery.
Lynn?
Yeah, they're like three separate references here. I hope to see dog's meat made of the user's flesh and dice of his bones, and then indentures of his skin. Oh no, it's more like boot leather. If you want to make vellum, you should skin a Puritan. So it's not just this passing thing. It's just like this imagery of desecrating a dead human. It like piles on quite a bit. My guess would be that it wasn't as shocking at the time as we find it, but I think people would be like, "Oh, come on, dude, that's too much."
Yeah, but it's sort of the way that it develops is I'm playing devil's advocate here. It's my job. But in the way that it seems to be, certainly in terms of the way Quicksilver's mind's working, it's sort of he's dancing from a thought to a thought, and he's going, "Oh, I'd like to grind him up and do this," and turn everything. "Oh no, his skin isn't right to do that with. I should you should do it with this and this. Oh, this is the thing." So I'm wondering whether it's dancing that way. But that isn't to say it's not unpleasant, and certainly probably cut today, or certainly adapted or adjusted in certain fashions. Other thoughts about the scene? 'Cause we've had quite a lengthy scene, and let's not just get caught up on that speech.
With that, Oh,
Julie.
with that last bit though, I mean, he's on friendly terms with security, and he didn't even make such bad comments about the guy who put him out his house. So the idea that he's such a creep behind the back of the people he's actually working with really, really does put a kink in the character. He didn't even say mean things about, of Touchstone the same way.
Lois.
Yeah, I mean, security is a usurer, which is a type everybody loathes. And he's also got his catchphrase, I do hunger and thirst to do thee good, or I do hunger and thirst for something, it's also religious hypocrisy, because, of course, it's a biblical expression. And I think that's part of what he's getting at here. But he's also saying that he's impotent in relation to his wife, whom we've only just glimpsed for a moment, but who's important in the play. And that he seems to be a sort of pander to her, although in fact, I think without intending to be. And he's trying to get hold of Gertrude's property, to cheat, really to give Sir Petronel money on the security of Gertrude's piece of land. At which point, I think the idea is that Sir Petronel intends to desert Gertrude and go off somewhere else, having made all his money out of her. The whole thing is pretty disgusting. But of course, since Quicksilver is part of this scheme, as you say, I guess he finds security just too revolting to put up with.
Lynn.
Yeah, security's not a nice person. He says something about, I don't charge such high interest, just 30 or 40 in the 100, which is really quite absorbent. I mean, in a later play, a young man wants to borrow money, says, to a money lender, it's like, you'll charge 100% if you can get away with it, and I'll pay, and I'm a big enough fool to pay 50 or something like that. But like the legal limit for interest was like 10% or something like that. So 30 or 40 in the 100 is very high interest, and security saying, it's not that bad. So yes, and he wants to basically cheat this poor woman he's never heard of her inherited property. It's like, he's a terrible person.
Sarah, and then we will move on.
Just changing the subject entirely. She only has a couple of lines, but I love Winifred. I love the fact that she shortens security's name to Q and calls him Sweet Q. Oh, my sweet Q. She's not even, I don't even know if she's like actually on stage or that she's just leaning through a window or whatever, but like there's just such a great little relationship contained within that just that tiny little phrase. It really tickled me and I really enjoyed it.
Okay, we need to move on. This scene effectively runs in. Some people section it off as a separate scene 3, but it effectively runs into this one. So enter Sir Petronel in boots with a riding wand.
I'll out of this wicked town as fast as my horse can trot. Here's now no good action for a man to spend his time in. Taverns grow dead, ordinaries are blown up, plays are at stand, houses of hospitality out of fall, not a feather waving or a spur jingling anywhere. I'll away instantly.
You'd best take some crowns in your purse, knight, or else your Eastward castle will smoke but miserably.
Oh, Frank, my castle. Alas, all the castles I have are built in the air, thou knowest.
I know it, knight, and therefore wonder whither your lady is going.
Faith, to seek her fortune, I think. I said I had a castle in land eastward, and eastward she will, without contradiction. Her coach and the coach of the sun must meet full butt. And the sun being outshined of her ladyship's glory, she fears he goes westward to hang himself.
And I fear when her enchanted castle becomes invisible, her ladyship will return and follow his example.
Oh, that she would have the grace, for I shall never be able to pacify her when she sees herself deceived so.
As easily as can be. Tell her she mistook your directions, and that shortly yourself will down with her to approve it. And then clothe but her crooper in a new gown, and you may drive her any way you list. For these women, sir, are like Essex calves. You must wriggle 'em on by the tail still, or they will never drive orderly.
But alas, sweet Frank, thou knowest my ability will not furnish her blood with those costly humours.
Cast that cost on me, sir. I have spoken to my old panda's security for money or commodity, and commodity, if you will, I know he will procure you.
Alas, what commodity?
Why, sir, what say you to figs and raisins?
A plague of figs and raisins and all such frail commodities. We shall make nothing of them.
Why then, sir, what say you to £40 in roasted beef?
Out upon it, I have less stomach to that than to figs and raisins. I'll out of town, though I surgeon with a friend of mine, for stay here I must not. My creditors have laid to against me, and I have no friend under heaven but my sword to bail me.
God's me, knight. Put him in sufficient sureties rather than let your sword bail you. Let him take their choice, either the King's Bench or the Fleet, or which of the two counters they like best, for by the Lord, I like none of 'em.
Well, Frank, there's no jesting with my earnest necessity. Thou knowest, if I make not present money to further my voyage begun, all's lost, and all I have laid about it.
Why then, sir, in earnest, if you can get your wise lady to set her hand to the sale of her inheritance, the Bloodhound security will smell out ready money for you instantly.
There spake an angel. To bring her to which conformity, I must feign myself extremely amorous, and alleging urgent excuses for my stay behind, part with her as passionately as she would from her foisting hound.
You have the sow by the right ear, sir. I warrant there was never child longed more to ride a cock horse or wear his new coat than she longs to ride in her new coach. She would long for everything when she was a maid, and now she will run mad for 'em. I lay my life she will have every year 4 children. And what charge and change of humour you must endure while she is with child, and how she will tie you to your tackling till she be with child, a dog would not endure. Nay, there's no turnspit dog bound to his wheel more servilely than you shall be to her wheel. For, as that dog can never climb the top of his wheel but when the top comes under him, so you shall never climb the top of her contentment but when she is under you.
Slight, how thou terrifiest me.
Nay, hark you, sir. What nurses, what midwives, what fools, what physicians, what cunning women must be sought for, fearing sometimes she is bewitched, sometimes in a consumption, to tell her tales, to talk bawdy to her, to make her laugh, to give her glisters, to let her blood under the tongue and betwixt the toes. How she will revile and kiss you, spit in your face and lick it off again. How she will vaunt you are her creature, she made you of nothing. How she could have had 1,000 marked jointures, she could have been made a lady by a Scotch knight and never have married him, she could have had panados in her bed every morning. How she set you up, and how she will pull you down. You'll never be able to stand of your legs to endure it.
Out of my fortune, what a death is my life bound face to face to. The best is, a long, time-fitted conscience is bound to nothing. Marriage is but a form in the school of policy, to which scholars sit fastened only with their painted chains. Old Security's young wife is near the furthest off with me.
Thereby lies a tale, sir. The old usurer will be here instantly with my punk Sindefy, whom you know your lady has promised me to entertain for her gentlewoman, and he, with a purpose to feed on you, invites you most solemnly by me to supper.
It falls out excellently fitly. I see desire of gain makes jealousy venturous.
Enter Gertrude, which I will now step in to read in the absence of Julie.
See, Frank, here comes my lady. Lord, how she views thee. She knows thee not, I think, in this bravery.
How now? Who be you, I pray?
One Master Francis Quicksilver, and please your ladyship.
God, my dignity as I am a lady, if he did not make me blush so that mine eye stood awater, would I were unmarried again. Where's my woman, pray?
See, madam, she now comes to attend you.
God save my honourable knight and his worshipful lady.
You're very welcome. You must not put on your hat yet.
No, madam, till I know your ladyship's further pleasure, I will not presume.
And is this a gentleman's daughter new come out of the country?
She is, madam, and one that her father hath a special care to bestow in some honourable lady's service, to put her out of her honest humours, forsooth, for she hath a great desire to be a nun, and please you.
A nun? What nun? A nun substantive or a nun adjective?
A nun substantive, madam. I hope if a nun be a noun, but I mean, lady, a vowed maid of that order.
I'll teach her to be a maid of the order, I warrant you. And can you do any work belongs to a lady's chamber?
What I cannot do, madam, I would be glad to learn.
Well said. Hold up then. Hold up your head, I say. Come hither a little.
I thank your ladyship.
And hark you, good man, you may put on your hat now. I do not look on you. I must have you of my faction now, not of my knight's maid.
No, forsooth, madam, of yours.
And draw all my servants in my bow, and keep my counsel, and tell me tales, and put me riddles, and read on a book sometimes when I am busy, and laugh at country gentlewomen, and command anything in the house for my retainers, and care not what you spend, for it is all mine, and in any case be still a maid, whatsoever you do, or whatsoever any man can do unto you.
Oh, I warrant your ladyship for that.
Very well. You shall ride in my coach with me into the country tomorrow morning. Come, knight, pray thee, let's make a short supper and to bed presently.
Nay, good madam, this night I have a short supper at home, waits on his worship's acceptation.
By my faith, but he shall not go, sir. I shall swoon, and he shall sup from me.
Oh,
Dearest.
pray thee forbear. Shall he lose his provision?
Ay, by lady, sir, rather than I lose my longing. Come in, I say, as I am a lady, you shall not go.
I told him what a burr he had gotten.
If you will not sup from your knight, madam, let me entreat your ladyship to sup at my house with him.
No, by my faith, sir, then we cannot be abed soon enough after supper.
What a medicine is this? Well, Master Security, you are new married as well as I. I hope you are bound as well. We must honour our young wives, you know.
In policy, Dad, till tomorrow she is sealed.
I hope in the morning yet your knighthood will break fast with me.
As early as you will, sir.
I thank your good worship. I do hunger and thirst to do you good, sir.
Ah, come, sweet knight, come. I do hunger and thirst to be abed with thee. Exeunt omnes. Yeah. There's again a lot going on. We have the con. We've been in the con before. What I feel about this with this previous scene, it's just a bit too much of it. It does feel that this just needs to be tighter. It's fine to have the con. It's fine. Everything sort of lifts, or it felt like everything lifts a bit when Gertrude came in. But I wasn't so sure how lifty it was with everybody else, because they're all being a bit obnoxious, and or far worse than obnoxious. But it's yeah. So yeah, I feel there's a sort of lack of pace in these two scenes. That we're not flying at quite as fleet a foot as we have in the previous act, or at least since we the sacking of Quicksilver, the beginning of the act was rather fine. Yeah. Any thoughts on that? I say it's quite fun to not quite sure where to place Gertrude. Having now just read a few lines, because of course shouldn't really be as posh as I was going for. It needs to be someone who doesn't quite do posh right, and but I didn't want that to be misinterpreted as I was doing it. So yeah. Yeah, it's interesting class struggles going on here across various levels. Thoughts, Lynn?
Yeah, I see a lot of misogyny here that's making me really uncomfortable. Quicksilver talks about, oh, she's gonna have 4 children every year, and she won't be happy unless you're making her preggers. Like, ew. and then there'll be midwives and all kinds of stuff all around your house, and like how horrible being married is going to be. And and Petronel seems to be kind of grossed out about the fact that his wife wants to consummate their marriage. It's just like the way the men talk about female sexuality and the way she's portrayed. I'm finding it quite icky. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. I don't know.
Well, I think the thing is, all of these people are not nice people. I mean, if we compare this with the previous act, where we're within a household where everybody's broadly speaking quite nice, or at least reasonable people, with the exception of Quicksilver sort of making noises and Petronel coming in being obviously absurd. People are absurd, but they're nice. But these people are not nice people at all. None of them are nice. So Petronel isn't nice. He is the mark, but he is also willing to be part of the con, even though he doesn't know there's a wider con that's going to con and going to make everything terrible. I'll go to Lois, who's muted at present, and then Aliki.
Yeah, one thing I was going to say about that 4 children a year, this refers really to the way that women, when they say they're pregnant, have longings, and they get treated really nicely and they get everything they want. And so I take it his point is that Gertrude is going to keep announcing that she's pregnant in order to, to be even more cosseted than she would be otherwise. Yeah, it just adds to the general sense of how awful she's going to be. And she's also super possessive. I mean, you might think that this means that Sir Petronel is gay, but then he does have that line about Security's young wife, and there's going to be a lot more about that. This whole part of the plot, I think, is Chapman, or most people think it is, and I think the wordiness might be due to Chapman as well.
It definitely feels like there's a different hand at work here, whereas the rest previously it felt very homogenous. Aliki.
Yeah, if Petronel has just married her for her money, maybe he does have a disgust of her without necessarily having a disgust of women. It's part of his character's awfulness that he's willing to take advantage of her whole kind of, I mean, she's an idiot, right? And she all has this thing about the nobility, but he suckered her along into that in order to reap her money, and then he's just trying to get the money without having anything to do with the woman, and it's just part of his horribleness, I think. And as you say, everybody is quite horrible here, which we can, if we tighten it up a bit, I think we can make more of a comic thing than a revolting thing.
Yes, and there's a difference to the awfulness of Sir Petronel to the awfulness of everybody else. They're awful with a certain level of malice that I don't think Sir Petronel necessarily is malicious in that way. I don't know if he's just encoded that way. I mean, I don't know if that's how it functions. I think we're supposed to laugh as much at Sir Petronel as laugh with him. I'm not sure we're supposed to laugh at Quicksilver per se. Anyway, we have one little scene we're going to quickly rattle through as we break the interval gap. Candles have been trimmed, music has been played, or similar. Act 3, Scene 1. Enter Sir Petronel, Quicksilver, Security, Bramble, and Winifred.
Thanks for your feast-like breakfast, good Master Security. I'm sorry, by reason of my instant haste to so long a voyage as Virginia, I am without means by any kind amends to show how affectionately I take your kindness, and to confirm by some worthy ceremony a perpetual league of friendship betwixt us.
Excellent night. Let this be a token betwixt us of inviolable friendship. I am new married to this fair gentlewoman, and by my hope to make her fruitful, though I be something in years, I vow faithfully unto you to make you godfather, though in your absence, to the first child I am blessed withal, and henceforth call me gossip, I beseech you, if you please to accept it.
In the highest degree of gratitude, most worthy gossip, and for confirmation of which friendly title, let me entreat my fair gossip, your wife here, to accept this diamond, and to keep it as my gift to her first child, wheresoever my fortune, in event of my voyage, shall bestow me.
How now, my coy wedlock? I make you strange of so noble a favour. Take it. I charge you with all affection, and by way of taking your leave, present boldly your lips to the honourable gossip.
How venturous he is to him, and how jealous to others.
Long may this kind touch of our lips print in our hearts all forms of affection. And now, my good gossip, if the writings be ready to which my wife should seal, let them be brought this morning before she takes coach into the country, and my kindness shall work her to dispatch it.
The writings are ready, sir. My learned counsel, here, Master Bramble, the lawyer, have perused them, and within this hour I will bring the scrivener with them to your worshipful lady.
Good Master Bramble, I will here take my leave of you, then. God send you fortunate please, sir, and contentious clients.
Thank you, forthright winds, sir, and a fortunate voyage.
Exit Bramble. Enter a messenger. Sir Petronel, here are 3 or 4 gentlemen desire to speak with you.
What are they?
They are your followers in this voyage, knight. Captain Seagull and his associates. I met them this morning and told them you would be here.
Let them enter, I pray you. I know they long to be gone, for their stay is dangerous.
Enter Seagull, Scapethrift, and Spendall.
God save my honourable colonel.
Welcome, good Captain Seagull and worthy gentlemen. If you will meet my friend Frank here and me at the Blue Anchor Tavern by Billingsgate this evening, we will there drink to our happy voyage, be merry, and take boat to our ship with all expedition.
Oh, no, Spendall.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. Defer it no longer, I beseech you, sir, but as your voyage is hitherto carried closely, and in another knight's name, so for your own safety and ours, let it be continued, our meeting and speedy purpose of departing known to as few as possible, lest your ship and goods be attached.
Well advised, Captain. Our colonel shall have money this morning to dispatch all our departures. Bring those gentlemen at night to the place appointed, and, with our skins full of vintage, we'll take occasion by the vantage. And away!
Will not fail, but be there, sir.
Good morrow, good captain and my worthy associates. Health and all sovereignty to my beautiful gossip. For you, sir, we shall see you presently with the writings.
With writings and crowns to my honourable gossip. I do hunger and thirst to do you good, sir.
And they exit. So, to sea, which I suppose if you're going by boat from the Thames, you will have to go east to get out. It's sort of the general direction. I don't think, however, that is another attempt to allude to Eastward Ho. But maybe it is. I don't know.
I think it is,
so, yeah, we have a continuation of the plot. And more setting up here, and everything must be secret and you mustn't tell anyone and things, generally setting up stuff that's going to continue happening in Act 3. And it's sort of a bit awkward to pause here as we are, because each of the acts have been quite self-contained, as Boyd's Company plays tend to be, because there is that definite act break, even if it's just a few minutes, because characters do have a tendency to walk off and then walk straight back on again otherwise. So we can definitely infer that there is a reasonable break between each of these acts. Mostly plot there, not a huge amount of fireworks. And it has to be said, the fireworks have been mostly contained in that opening portion of the play, where I think we were all really, really with it. And now but all of that was sort of set up to the plot. It wasn't quite the actual plot itself. The marriage of Mildred and Golding hasn't really gone anywhere per se yet. There may be some stuff going on there. It's very much been extending the narrative around Quicksilver and Sir Petronel, and the con that's going on there, and introducing this awkwardly coded character of security, as usuals always are, in the sense that they're often coded in potentially an anti-Semitic context, even at a point where such coding is more complicated by the nature of the diversity of London of the time. But that doesn't mean to say that coding isn't still there. Other thoughts on this little opening to Act 3? It's a good opening to an act. I quite like the just so off to see. It sort of gives the impression that something is stuff is in the offing, and that makes me hopeful that interesting things will happen next session. Any other thoughts on that little scenette? It's a little scene. It's very difficult to say anything exciting about it. Sarah.
Well, I was just struck by the lack of characterization. We have these new characters entering in at the end there with great names. As Aliki pointed out in the chat, Captain Seagull. I mean, what's not to like? And I was just struck by the contrast with the first, act or two, because there you had like characters who were just with a few strokes were drawn. And you have these great people who kind of bounced off the page and into life, right in front of you. No real work really required from the actors to just bring them to life, because it's all there. It was all there in the dialogue. And here you've got the introduction of new characters who, okay, they're minor characters, but again, they could also bounce off the page, and they don't. So I don't know my early modern playwrights well enough to know who's writing which bit. Lois said it was Chapman. I believe her, but it's like he clearly has not got the characterization ability that his earlier playwrighting cohort has, whoever it is, and that's a bit of a shame, really, because that was the thing that I was enjoying most about the opening.
But it's also actually some of the other characters who have already been established don't bounce quite as excitingly. I think Sir Petronel feels a bit wasted in the last few scenes. Doesn't seem to have the potential, because in theory he's still supposed to be a comic character. Okay, he's involved in a fairly nasty bit of business, but he's not bouncing off in that fashion at all here. But it may just be the context in which he's placed, and an actor may be able to make those things work. I'm not even so sure about Quicksilver either. It just doesn't seem that we've got the quotable lines in the same way as we did. Whereas there was lots of little lines where I'm going, oh, I like that bit. I like that. I'm underlining it. I haven't really underlined anything in these last few scenes in the way that I did at the beginning. Lois was waving.
Yeah, well. Again, this is partly, I think, a move from Marston to Chapman. I mean, Quicksilver swears an awful lot in the first part of the play, and he's not swearing very much at all in this part. I mean, there are things, it's the same with the quotations. There's, as you say, there's a lot less of that, and quite a lot of the characterization, especially in the first part, is done with catchphrases and mannerisms, quotations, things like that. I mean, as far as the three sailors or whatever they are. Probably the costuming would be enough to make them individual. I mean, they obviously come on looking sort of like low lives with some touch of the nautical about them. And I guess they're really there to emphasize the incredible precariousness of just about everything that's going on. I mean, Sir Petronel has apparently got hold of this ship in somebody else's name and has no real right to it. And they're terrified that word will get round and that it will be seized and they won't be able to get away. And they really are planning to leave their creditors, their partners, just about everything behind them. It's quite a terrifying scheme. And of course, what everybody always finds interesting is the reference to Virginia, the fact that they're actually crossing the Atlantic. The story that Chapman is using as the security Winifred Petronel plot is actually told in an Italian collection of stories, and it's about an affair between a merchant's wife and a guy that sails across the Mediterranean on a much shorter voyage. But this idea that somebody who's having an affair with somebody's wife is actually planning to go all the way to Virginia, it's a rather different proposition.
Yes, I mean it's quite a massive proposition, and of course then we feed into the other sort of historical narratives of what's going on with these kind of voyages and what's going on the other side of the Atlantic. It is so extreme. There is also a slight narrative problem of that information being imparted to us, because I'm not sure how much of that I was taking in without having already known pretty much what was going to happen. It's that sense of I'm not sure how well some of the explication is going on. That was sort of my objection with some of those longer scenes that we've just had. An awful lot was being said, but I'm not sure how much of it I was taking in. Whereas okay, in the first act, first scene, we have some quite massive speeches from people expanding, and quite in many, you could argue, quite thuddingly, just explaining the plot to the audience. But it was clear what was going on in a way that I'm not so sure Act 2 manages to do. Even with explicitly telling us what they're doing, there's something slightly obscure about how it's being done. We are drifting into final thoughts, I can tell. I'm already drifting into final thoughts. I loved the way that this opened. I think there's some we know we have to cut this. This is quite a long play, and if it's to be successful as a comedy, it needs some adjustment. And I think I've already found where I want to make some trims, and that's not just because to make it shorter. I think there is the definite exposition problems with Act 2. I think there's a lot of tightening that needs to happen. I think there's an awful lot of just people saying words rather than saying something that advances anything. When security and Sindefy, etc., and all that lot turn up. And I think that's just where a lot of trimming and a lot of tightening and a lot of actor work, actually, to take the basis that you've got earlier in the play and presumably later in the play as well, and get over that expositionary hump of that particular plot line. But I could be being unfair. Maybe other people loved that bit, but I'm not getting that impression from the room. I will go to final thoughts. I will go to Lois first.
Right. Okay. Well, the discussion, as you say, with security and Sindefy and so on, is this whole, is the court better than the tradesman's lot, and is usury an honorable profession, which everybody, of course, thought it was not, and we don't really yet know much about Sindefy. I mean, the impression you get, since Quicksilver refers to her as his punk, is that she's presumably a sex worker and possibly employed by security. I think he seems to have some sort of relationship with her. And then if you got this bit, she's going to be passing herself off as a gentleman's daughter from the country in order to be the waiting woman of Gertrude, and apparently is going to be used in some way to get her to do what they want. So this is just a further rather unattractive thing. But what is interesting in those bits that we would probably cut is that Sindefy talks quite a lot of sense. I mean, compared to Quicksilver and security. I don't know how far there's any real attempt to characterize her. She may just be given the sensible things she says because somebody has to say them. But she is one of the more puzzling characters in the play, I think.
Lynn, any final thoughts?
Not much. I wonder if we've dispensed with Mildred and Golding and Touchstone, if we're done with them. I kind of miss them, even though they're a little boring. I'm struggling with this because I find everyone so reprehensible. Maybe Quicksilver's supposed to be charmingly rakish, but yeah, he maybe takes it a little too far for my taste. And what's his name? Who's named after a firearm, Petronel. Yeah, maybe he's supposed to be funny and maybe in a way charming, but he's gonna sign over his wife's property and then abandon her. Yeah, it's hard for me because it's so hard to. It's not even just hard to like people; it's hard not to hate them. So we'll see what happens.
But this is the thing about satire, and that's what it is sort of the point of the play. There are nice people. We do have Mildred, and we do have Golding, and we to a degree Touchstone and his wife are perfectly reasonable people. So there are deliberate opposites, I think, going on in this play as well. We've got deliberate pairings. We got the reasonable pairing and the utterly unreasonable pairing. Yeah.
We've just spent so much time with the awful people. It's beginning to wear on me.
But I think also we stopped and started more during the awful people, whereas we sort of flew through the opening because I was trying to make sure we had time. So yeah, I mean there is a balance there, but I mean that's the genre thing. I mean that's not inherently the play being at fault there. It's just you have to like that. You have to like the kind of thing where you've got awful people doing awful things. You have to buy into that. And yeah, I mean some. Alan, any final thoughts?
I must admit, it's one that's not really engaging me. The first act did promise that it was going to have a bit of life in it, but knowing that Jonson was involved in the thing in part, we've got Act 2 did seem to be very much the Johnsonian wall of words. You know, pick some sense out of that. The words are all in there; they're just not the right order, and there's too damn many of them. And I think I'd take issue with your description there of the Touchstones as being an admirable couple. I think he certainly has got some common sense. She seems to me to be the social climbing model for her daughter who's picked up this dodgy knight.
Yes, but there's no malice in her. She doesn't appear to be doing things maliciously. She might be a figure of she may be a figure of satire in the same way her daughter is a figure of satire.
Yeah, I mean
but
she's
you're
a
not supposed to
hyacinth
hate
bouquet.
her.
She's a hyacinth bouquet.
Yes. And yeah, and there's all sorts of questions about where class runs through this. Aliki, any final thoughts?
Yeah, in contrast with, I guess, others, I'm kind of enjoying the satire. There's something pleasurable about how very horrible these people are and how much pleasure they take in telling you how horrible they are. So, yeah, I'm quite interested in seeing what happens next. That's all.
Yeah, it's interesting because especially I was talking about the con going on, and of course one of the things we're not so used to today is the most con things today try to make out that the con artists are really actually deep down they have hearts of gold and their targets are evil, whereas in fact it's the other way around.
This isn't the Sting, is it?
No. So there might be something there that's perhaps pulling us in slightly weird directions. Sarah, any final thoughts?
My chief final thought is that I hope Marston comes back. I don't know.
And Jonson, if Jonson has had a hand in the first act as well, then bring back Jonson. Yeah,
whoever created that first act, I hope they come back because I was really enjoying that, and I think you're right, Rob, with what you said about the con just being a bit too bogged down, and about it just not being very well explicated. Because I love a good con, but it just, the details were kind of a bit lost. I mean, I got the bit about the fact that Sir Petronel is going to, basically marry this girl for her land, swap it for money, and then bugger off and abandon her because the whole thing is that he wants to, go off on this voyage to Virginia. I got all of that, but then I didn't get the thing at all about the fact that the ship isn't his and they're fleeing their credit. That just completely passed me by. And it's not that I wasn't paying attention. It's just that it just kind of got lost in the dense bulk of the exposition. So yeah, some severe prunage I think is required to just give it a bit of fluidity and bounce. I am also quite interested that it's, again, this came up in the first act for me, but it's now gone nowhere. So I'm thinking perhaps this is going nowhere. But I was quite interested with the initial setup, with the fact that you have this goldsmith with two daughters, the social climbing daughter and the circumspect daughter, and then two apprentices, the social climbing apprentice and the circumspect apprentice, because it had perhaps not fairy tale echoes, but certainly folk tale echoes. You know, that's the setup for many folk tales. And just taking that basic premise and sticking it in the city and turning it into a city comedy, I was like, oh, this is going to be really interesting. Where is this going to go? And it turns out it doesn't appear to be going anywhere. But I am kind of intrigued by the parallels between Gertrude and Quicksilver, and like I feel that they would just make a really good couple. And I don't know why that plot hasn't happened, but maybe it will. I don't know. But I thought it was going to go off in a really interesting direction for me personally, because I'm a fan of folktales.
Well, it's also
it hasn't
had a morality play schema at the beginning that you're going to have one example and another example.
Yeah.
And they're going to one's going to go off and become dissolute and end up poor, and the other one's going to go and work hard and become the Lord Mayor.
But then actually subvert that because it's in a city comedy and actually do something crazy. I thought that's where we were going, and I'm not sure that we are, but maybe we will. I don't know. We'll find out.
Yeah, the other thing, just calling it a city comedy. I mean, there is an element here, and this is something we've already encountered. We're probably going to encounter more. Is the detail of the city and how much of that an audience is going to take doing this today. We've had a lot of little references, you know, where footnotes are helpful, but of course you can't. Well, you can put footnotes in a live show, but it'd be really weird. But that said, hey, why not? Let's give it a go. Because as I say, there's just so many little details, and it's a matter of how many do you cut, how many do you find modern analogues for, how many do you tweak or slightly reword so that the audience might get what you mean. And that's where all of that stuff with security and Quicksilver it's very much within its age. And I think that the shorthand for what they're talking about, I mean, there are modern analogues for all of those things, but they're not referenced in that way, and they function differently, and you know these things exist in a different time. So I think that's one of those practicalities that all city comedies to a degree have. We can sit there and go, okay, I recognise the whole of that situation with Touchstone's family and the various, the daughters and the princesses. I can recognise that. I don't really recognise in the same way what security and those are doing. There are analogues. But actually, the way they function is slightly differently today, and they don't quite match. It's like a train that's just slightly out of sync with the platform. You can get off, but you have to really stretch. Any other thoughts before I close the session, Lois?
Just that there's a sort of inconsistency, which I think probably does come from the multiple authorship, which is that Sir Petronel is wondering what on earth he will do when Gertrude discovers that there is no castle and comes back. I mean, it's not very clear what sort of direction she's been given and what her sat-nav is like and so on. But Quicksilver says, oh, just tell her she got the directions wrong, you know, and you'll take her down there some other time. But in fact, I mean, Petronel is expecting to be a million miles away by the time he discovers this. And, they seem to be talking as if this part of the plot was meant to continue without the whole voyage thing. So I think at some point the voyage plot and the kind of cheating within the city plot got tied together without completely tying everything up.
Yeah, it's one of those things you're wondering, is one of those details supposed to, as some sort of spur of the moment satirical flourish that we don't get? Because it's that kind of thing that would interrupt a plot, going, oh, put this bit in it, it'll definitely get a laugh. And of course, it's all got muddled and time has passed and we've probably no idea what they're talking about. And it's sort of, that those sorts of things happen. Things happen to scripts. I mean, the idea that any play makes sense, really. I mean, once they've gone through the mill, they get really messed about over time. Anyway, on that note, it is time to close the first session on Eastward Ho. We will be hoeing away eastward. We're more in Act 3, and we're going to see what we get from the various authors' touches going forward. All that remains to thank all the wonderful readers for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye. Pickle in thy throat.